Security to Principal Vexithul's office. The human girl just threw Crix through a reinforced wall, and she's not even breathing hard. Principal Vexithul's secondary heart stuttered as the emergency channel crackled to life. Through his office window, he could see students scattering in the main corridor, their panicked chittering audible even through the soundproofing. He pulled up the security feed with trembling manipulators, and what he saw made his circulatory fluid run cold. Crix, captain of the combat sports team, pride of the Valtor species, winner of 3 consecutive sector championships, was embedded in what used to be a reinforced structural wall. The impact crater spider-webbed across the military-grade composite, materials designed to withstand direct weapons fire. Medical drones were already swarming around 2 other students, Xilax and Jotaro, both lying motionless on the corridor floor. And there, standing in the center of it all, was Emma Johnson. The human girl looked exactly as she had every other day. Slightly rumpled school uniform, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, that friendly smile she always wore. Her breathing was steady, normal, like she'd just finished a casual stroll instead of putting 3 of the station's most formidable students in the medical bay. According to YouTube analytics, 99.6% of viewers are not subscribed. That's a huge number. By subscribing the channel that is completely free, you'll help support the channel and never miss fresh content. Get her to my office, Vexthul managed. Now. And someone tell me what in the spiral galaxies just happened. Security Chief Kaldra arrived first, her combat-hardened features tight with something Vexthul had never seen in 20 cycles of working together: fear. She'd served in the border wars, had faced down pirate raiders and hostile boarding parties without flinching, but right now her secondary arms were trembling. "Sir, you need to see the full footage." Her voice was barely above a whisper. The recording made everything worse. Vexithul watched as Crix and his friends cornered Emma near her locker, the same locker he now realized had been vandalized repeatedly over the past weeks. How had he missed this? The 3 males were laughing, shoving her, and then Crix grabbed something from her hand, a necklace. Emma's expression changed. "Please give that back," her voice came through clearly on the audio. "It was my grandmother's." Crix dangled it mockingly, then snapped the chain. What happened next took less than 3 seconds. Emma's hand shot out, the cameras barely tracked the movement, and she grabbed Crix's wrist. There was a wet cracking sound. Crix's scream cut off abruptly as Emma pivoted, using leverage that should have been impossible for her smaller frame, and sent him flying. The impact when he hit the wall registered on the station's structural integrity sensors. Xilax tried to intervene. Emma's elbow caught him in the thorax with a dull thump. He dropped like a severed cable. Jotaro, showing more survival instinct than his friends, actually turned to run. Emma caught his shoulder with one hand, just one hand, and pulled him backwards. The momentum flip sent him tumbling across the polished floor until he collided with a support column. Then Emma knelt down, carefully picked up the broken necklace, and walked calmly toward the principal's office. The whole incident, 4 seconds. "She's waiting outside," Kaldra said quietly. "Medical reports are coming in. Crix has compound fractures in 3 limbs and a severe concussion. Xilax has a collapsed primary lung and cracked rib cage. Jotaro has a spinal compression injury." She paused. "They're all in critical care." "And the human?" "Not a scratch. Heart rate is barely elevated." She asked if she was in trouble and if she could please have a glass of water. Vexthul's primary hands clenched. "Send her in." Emma walked in with that same friendly demeanor, holding her broken necklace carefully. She sat in the chair across from his desk, the same chair where he'd counseled students about minor infractions, scheduling conflicts, homesickness, never this, never anything like this. "Emma," he began, struggling to keep his voice steady, "do you understand what you've done?" She blinked at him, confused. "I asked them to stop nicely first, sir. Multiple times, actually, over the past 2 months." Her tone was matter-of-fact, almost apologetic. "But they kept pushing, and then they broke my grandmother's necklace, and I handled it." "Handled it?" 3 students in critical care, structural damage to the station, and she called it handling it. Why didn't you report this? Vexthul's voice cracked slightly. The bullying, the harassment. Emma looked genuinely surprised by the question. I didn't think it was that serious. I mean, they were just being jerks. It wasn't like they could actually hurt me or anything. Vexthul stared at the medical reports scrolling across his display, each line more damning than the last. Crix's fractures were so severe, the medical AI had flagged them as consistent with high-velocity impact trauma. Zilax's collapsed lung required emergency regeneration therapy. Jataro's spine had compressed by 3 centimeters, an injury typically seen in loading dock accidents. Let me understand this correctly, he said slowly, looking at Emma. They couldn't actually hurt you? Well, no. Emma shifted uncomfortably in her chair. I mean, they tried. Crix liked to shove me pretty hard, and Zilax would trip me sometimes. Jataro threw my lunch away probably a dozen times. She shrugged. It was annoying, but it's not like I was going to die or anything. Kaeldra pulled up additional security footage. Sir, I've been reviewing the archives. This has been going on for weeks. Look, the recordings painted a damning picture. Emma being deliberately isolated in the cafeteria, her belongings scattered across corridors, Crix and his friends blocking her path, forcing her to squeeze past them. Small, constant cruelties that Vexthul recognized with growing horror as systematic bullying. And, through it all, Emma just endured. She picked up her scattered belongings with a patient sigh. She ate lunch alone with a book. She said, "Excuse me," politely when they blocked her path, even as they laughed at her. Why? Vexthul demanded. Why didn't you report any of this? Emma looked genuinely puzzled. Because I could handle it, like back home, this would just be normal teenager stuff. Yeah, but not worth getting adults involved over. She held up her broken necklace. But this was different. This was my grandmother's. She gave it to me before she died, and these jerks broke it just to be cruel. So you handled it, Kaeldra said flatly. So I handled it, Emma confirmed. Vexthul's manipulators trembled as he opened the emergency communication channel. This is Principal Vexthul of Galactic Academy Station 7. I need an immediate connection to the Galactic Education Board. Priority Alpha. The response was instant. Principal, Alpha priority is reserved for 3 students are in critical care after an altercation with a human exchange student. I need board representatives here immediately. Silence. Then, representatives will arrive within the hour. Next, he contacted the human embassy. The attaché who answered, a pleasant-looking woman named Patricia Anderson, listened to his breathless explanation with an expression that shifted from concern to something that looked almost like resignation. I see, Anderson said carefully. And Emma is unharmed? Completely. That's part of the problem. How is she? What did they do to her, Principal? The question stopped him cold. Excuse me? Anderson's friendly demeanor hardened. You just told me 3 students are hospitalized after an altercation with a 16-year-old girl. In my experience, Emma doesn't start fights. So I'll ask again, what did they do to her? There was systematic bullying, harassment, theft, and they destroyed a family heirloom. Ah, Anderson's expression softened slightly. That would do it. We'll send a representative, but Principal, Emma showed considerable restraint if they're only in critical care and not the morgue. The connection cut off, leaving Vexthul staring at the blank screen. Only in critical care? The station council emergency meeting convened in record time. Councillor Vexia led the demands for immediate action. This human has committed assault resulting in grievous bodily harm. She must be expelled and face criminal charges. The victims were the aggressors, Kaeldra interjected, displaying the footage. Months of documented harassment. That doesn't justify this level of violence. Vexthul contacted Emma's parents next. Her father answered, a broad-shouldered man with kind eyes that went ice-cold when Vexthul explained the situation. Let me get this straight, Mr. Johnson said slowly. 3 boys have been bullying my daughter for months. Your staff did nothing, and now you're calling because Emma finally stood up for herself? 3 students are critically injured. What did they do to her? The question was sharp, demanding. They destroyed her grandmother's necklace. Mr. Johnson's jaw tightened. They destroyed Margaret's necklace. The one Emma's worn every day since the funeral? He looked off screen. Honey, they broke Mom's necklace. A woman's voice in the background rising with anger. They did what? Is Emma hurt? Mr. Johnson's attention snapped back. No, but then here's what's going to happen, Principal. You're going to punish the boys who bullied our daughter. You're going to explain to us why your staff allowed this to continue for months. And you're going to apologize to Emma for creating an environment where she felt she had to handle this herself. His expression was granite. Because if you think we're upset about her defending herself, you've severely misjudged human parents. The connection terminated. Vexthul sat in stunned silence as his entire understanding of the situation inverted itself. Somehow, in the span of 30 minutes, Emma Johnson had gone from perpetrator to victim in everyone's eyes. Everyone except the station council who were still demanding her expulsion. The Galactic Education Board representatives arrived in 43 minutes, led by a severe-looking Zillion named Director Sinara. She immediately ordered comprehensive medical scans of Emma, despite the girl's protests that she was totally fine. Vexthul watched the scan results populate his screen and felt his understanding of reality crack. Bone density, 847% above galactic average. Muscle fiber composition, unprecedented efficiency rating. Cardiovascular system, capable of sustained output that would rupture organs in most species. Reaction time, 0.14 seconds. The medical AI kept flagging errors, insisting the data was corrupted because no biological organism could have these specifications. It's not corrupted, Director Sinara said quietly, her face pale. Pull up her species classification. Kaeldra's manipulators shook as she accessed the galactic database. Earth, origin planet of Homo sapiens, classification. Her voice died. Say it, Sinara ordered. Class 12 Deathworld. Kaeldra looked like she might faint. Gravity, 1.0 G. Atmospheric oxygen content. Toxic levels. Native predator species includes humans. Evolutionary background. Persistence hunters. Apex predators. Survival mechanisms include... She stopped reading, her secondary arms wrapping around herself protectively. Vexthul felt his organs compress. The station operates at 0.4 G standard. Correct. Sinara pulled up additional data, which means Emma Johnson has been living in less than half her natural gravity for 6 months. She turned to Emma, who was still sitting patiently in the corner. The weighted vest in your locker, how heavy? Emma blinked. About 40 pounds? I needed it for my morning run so I didn't feel so floaty. 40 pounds, Kaeldra whispered. She was training with additional mass to feel normal. Sinara brought up biomechanical analysis. At 0.4 G, every movement Emma makes generates approximately 2.5 times the force she intends. Her casual walk produces ground pressure equivalent to a fully armored security officer at standard gravity. She looked at Vexthul. When she threw Carix, she was operating in an environment where she's functionally superhuman, against opponents who registered as physically inferior by significant margins. They were half my size, Emma interjected, sounding confused. I thought they were just playing rough at first. Like, yeah, it was mean, but back home kids roughhouse way harder than that. I didn't realize they were actually trying to hurt me until they started getting, really serious about it. Really serious, Vexthul repeated weakly. Yeah. Like when Carix tried to punch me last week, I figured he was just messing around because it didn't hurt. But then I saw his friends filming it and laughing, and I was like, oh, they're being bullies. She frowned. I told them to stop, multiple times. I was really polite about it. Sinara pulled up the footage of the incident. She ran biomechanical analysis in real time, overlaying force calculations. When Emma grabbed Curix's wrist, she exerted approximately 40 pounds of pressure. For her, that's minimal, equivalent to picking up a sandwich. For Curix, with his calcium-based skeletal structure in low gravity, it exceeded fracture threshold by 340%. "I was holding back," Emma protested. "I didn't want to actually hurt them. I just wanted them to stop and give back my necklace." The room went silent. "You held back," Kaldra said slowly, her combat instincts finally processing the implications. "If you hadn't held back, well, yeah, I could have actually hurt them." Emma looked genuinely distressed. "I'm not a psycho. I just wanted them to leave me alone." Vexthul reviewed the footage again with horrified new understanding. Emma's movements were controlled, precise. She'd grabbed, not punched. She'd thrown using leverage, not raw strength. She'd incapacitated, not killed. And she'd done it all in under 4 seconds with what she considered restraint. "She could have killed them," he whispered. "Accidentally. Just by reacting at full strength." "Not accidentally," Sinara corrected grimly. "The scan shows she has threat assessment capabilities built into her neurological structure. Predator evolution. She evaluated their threat level, determined appropriate response, and executed with precision. All subconsciously." She looked at Emma with something between awe and terror. "You've been suppressing your natural reactions for 6 months. Every shove, every trip, every theft, you consciously chose not to respond with your species' natural defensive capabilities." "Because they were just being jerks," Emma said, like it was obvious. "You don't hospitalize people for being
jerks. You just deal with it." A commotion outside interrupted them. Crix's family had arrived, led by his father, a massive Valtor who looked ready to tear the station apart. "Where is she? Where is the human who attacked my son?"
Sinara stepped into his path and held up a data pad. "Before you make demands, Counselor Kovacs, you need to see this." She showed him Emma's planetary classification. Kovacs's rage drained like someone had pulled a plug. His skin went from flushed crimson to ash gray. "A Deathworlder? My son bullied a Deathworlder?" His legs buckled. "For 2 months. Your son and his friends systematically harassed a Class 12 predator species for 8 weeks, Sinara confirmed. She asked them to stop politely, repeatedly. They destroyed an item of significant emotional value. She responded with what her species considers minimal force." Kovacs looked at Emma, really looked at her, and Vexthul saw the moment the Valtor's perception shifted. The friendly teenager in the rumpled uniform became something else. Something that had chosen, every single day, not to hurt his son. Something that had finally run out of patience. "Ancestors preserve us," Kovacs breathed. "She could have killed him." "She held back," Kaldra said quietly. The human embassy representative arrived an hour later. A cheerful man named Thomas Garcia who brought documentation that made everything infinitely worse. "So you're concerned about the level of force Emma used?" Garcia pulled up a video file. "This is standard Earth children's recreation. It's called football." Vexthul watched in mounting horror as young humans, children Emma's age, deliberately collided with each other at high velocity, tackled each other to the ground, and piled on top of fallen opponents. The impact forces registered on the analysis software were comparable to low-grade vehicle accidents. "This is recreational?" Sinara's voice cracked. "This is supervised and regulated," Garcia corrected. "You want to see what unsupervised roughhousing looks like?" He pulled up more footage. Siblings wrestling, friends playfully shoving each other, teenagers engaging in what they called messing around, that involved impacts that would hospitalize most species present. "Emma's restraint wasn't just impressive," Garcia continued. "It was extraordinary. She spent 2 months being harassed by students who, to her perception, were essentially toddlers being mean. She never retaliated. She never reported it because, by her standards, they literally couldn't hurt her. The bruises they gave her?" He gestured to archived medical scans. "Healed overnight. What would put your students in medical care for weeks, her biology fixed in hours?" Caldra pulled up Emma's medical records from the past 2 months. There were no visits, no complaints. Even the scans from incidents they'd now identified showed minor tissue damage that had completely regenerated before the next day. She thought it wasn't serious, Vex Thul said numbly, because by human standards it wasn't. Exactly, Garcia's friendly demeanor hardened. Your anti-bullying protocols failed because you couldn't conceive of a student who could endure that level of harassment without being seriously harmed. Emma tried to handle it herself because that's what human teenagers do. We teach them to stand up for themselves, to be resilient, to not run to authority over every little thing. He leaned forward. But when they destroyed something irreplaceable, something tied to a deceased family member, that crossed a line that exists in every human culture, and Emma responded appropriately. Appropriately, Kavax's voice was weak. My son may never fully recover. Your son spent 2 months tormenting someone who could have accidentally killed him by sneezing too hard in his direction, Garcia said flatly. She asked him to stop, politely, repeatedly. He escalated instead. Emma chose to end it non-lethally. You should be thanking her for her restraint. The chamber fell silent. Director Sinara straightened her posture. Decision made. Crix, Zilax, and Jotaro are hereby expelled from Galactic Academy for systematic harassment and assault. The evidence is overwhelming. Assault? Counselor Vexia protested. They're the ones in medical... They assaulted a student for 8 weeks. Sinara's tone brooked no argument. That student happened to be biologically capable of withstanding it. That doesn't make it less criminal. It makes them incredibly fortunate to be alive. Kavax rose slowly. My family, we will issue a formal apology to Emma and her family. He looked at the human girl with something like shell-shocked respect, and we will be grateful she showed mercy. The other families, watching the proceedings via holoconference, quickly followed suit. Zilax's parents looked horrified. Jotaro's mother was openly weeping. Sinara turned to Vex Thul. Effective immediately, all human students are flagged for extreme capability mismatch in standard gravity environments. New protocols will be developed. Every species will receive mandatory education on Deathworld biology. She pulled up a galaxy-wide bulletin. And I'm recommending that Earth's classification be prominently featured in all exchange program materials. Students need to understand what they're dealing with. Students? Caldra laughed shakily. We need to understand. I'm a combat veteran, and I had no idea. Vex Thul approached Emma, who'd been sitting quietly through all of this, still holding her broken necklace. Emma, on behalf of Galactic Academy, I apologize. We failed you. Our protocols should have caught this. You should never have been in a position where you felt you had to handle this alone. Emma looked up, surprised. Oh. Thank you? She glanced at her necklace. Can I go fix this? I think I can repair the chain if I have some tools. After everything, the violence, the revelations, the political
upheaval, she just wanted to fix her grandmother's necklace. Of course, Vex Thul managed. And Emma? You're welcome to stay at the academy, if you want to. Emma smiled, that same friendly smile she'd always worn. Yeah, I'd like that. I'm actually really enjoying my xenobiology class. Of course she was. 2 weeks later, Galactic Academy Station 7 looked remarkably similar to before, with some critical differences. The new human-specific training facility occupied an entire section of the athletics wing, complete with adjustable gravity up to 1.2 G and reinforced equipment rated for Deathworld use. Emma used it every morning, and students had taken to watching through the observation windows with fascinated horror as she ran casual laps that would kill most species. The cafeteria was different too. Emma still sat at the same table, but now she had company. Students who approached with careful respect, asking polite questions about Earth and human culture. She seemed more confused by the sudden popularity than she'd been by the bullying. I just want to finish my math homework, she told Caldra that morning, surrounded by admirers.
Why does everyone want to eat lunch with me now? Kaeldra, now permanently assigned as Emma's liaison with hazard pay, had simply sighed. Because they're terrified of you, Emma. But I'm not scary. The security chief had just pointed at the training facility, where Emma's morning workout had registered on the station's structural sensors. Emma had rolled her eyes. The human interaction guidelines were posted in every corridor now, broadcasted galaxy-wide. Simple rules. Don't harass them. Don't touch their belongings. Don't assume their friendliness means weakness. Remember that they come from a Class 12 Deathworld, and their biology reflects that. Earth Exchange program applications now came with prominent warning labels and mandatory psychological screening. On the third week, Emma walked into her chemistry class like nothing had changed. She slid into her usual seat, pulled out her notes, and started reviewing the previous lesson on molecular bonding. A Zillion student in the next row nervously raised a manipulator. Emma, could I borrow a pencil? Emma looked up with that friendly smile. Sure. She reached into her bag and held out a pencil. The entire class flinched. Emma paused, pencil extended, and watched 20 students simultaneously lean back in their seats. Someone's breathing apparatus whistled with stress. Another student's color-changing skin flashed through 3 shades of alarm. She sighed deeply, the sound heavy with teenage exasperation. Guys, I'm not going to hurt anyone who doesn't destroy my stuff. It's just a pencil. She placed it gently on the Zillion's desk and returned to her notes. Can we please just focus on chemistry? This exam is going to be brutal. The class slowly relaxed, though several students kept glancing at her nervously. Emma ignored them, highlighting sections in her textbook about covalent bonds, completely absorbed in studying. In the security office, Kaeldra watched the monitor feeds and shook her head. This was normal teenage behavior to humans. Studying for exams, lending pencils, casual socialization. The fact that this particular teenager could accidentally kill everyone in that classroom without breaking a sweat was just irrelevant to her species. Principal Vexthul's official report to the Galactic Education Board ended with a single addendum. Note to Board. Strongly recommend mandatory psychiatric support services for all staff managing human students. Based on recent events and continued observation, we're going to need it. Also recommend updated insurance policies. Our current coverage does not account for Deathworld-related structural damage. In the classroom, Emma finished highlighting her notes, stretched, and muttered to herself, "Okay, covalent bonds. Got it. Now on to ionic." She reached for her water bottle. The class flinched again and took a sip, completely oblivious. Just another normal day at Galactic Academy, for a human, anyway.